The sun was just beginning to dip behind the hills when the black luxury car rolled into the driveway of the large, elegant estate. Its shiny exterior reflected the soft orange light, and every movement of the vehicle spoke of power and wealth. Inside sat the billionaire CEO, a man known for his sharp mind, sharp suits, and even sharper temper. He had arrived with a serious purpose, a deal that could change the course of his company, and he expected everything around him to match his efficiency. He did not tolerate mistakes or delays, and he certainly had no patience for people who could not keep up. The estate staff were on high alert. The maid was bustling about, arranging flowers, straightening curtains, and making sure everything looked perfect. Her daughter, a young girl with curious eyes and an alert mind, quietly helped her mother, keeping an eye on small details that others might overlook. The girl had grown up in the estate, learning the routines, the sounds, the rhythm of the household. She had learned to observe more than speak, noticing things that often went unseen. Today, though, she sensed something unusual in the air. The tension was sharper than usual. There was a sense of urgency that even she could feel. As the CEO stepped out of his car, his presence filled the space. He moved with authority, each step confident and purposeful. He was dressed immaculately, his suit perfectly tailored, and his expression was one of expectation and impatience. He glanced at the staff and immediately noticed the small details, the slightly crooked tablecloth, the faint dust on the window sill, the arrangement of the chairs in the waiting room. His eyes were like a hawk's, catching everything, missing nothing. He began speaking quickly, his tone brisk, expecting immediate responses. The maid tried to explain a few things, gestures accompanying her words, but he was already moving ahead, not waiting for answers. The girl watched silently, sensing his frustration building. She had seen this before, the way he would expect things done perfectly, often before anyone could even fully understand what he wanted. It was a stressful moment for everyone in the room. The CEO then tried to communicate some specific instructions, but there was a problem. These instructions required clarity that only someone who knew sign language could understand. The staff looked at each other helplessly. They had never learned sign language, and the CEO's gestures were unfamiliar to them. A tense silence filled the room. He repeated his gestures, hoping someone would catch on, but it was clear that they could not. His frustration grew, and it began to show in the tightening of his jaw, the impatient tapping of his fingers on the armrest, and the sharpness of his voice. He started speaking louder, repeating his words with even more emphasis, but no one seemed to understand. The girl's eyes widened slightly as she recognized the signs he was using. She had learned some sign language on her own, picking it up from books and videos, and occasionally from people in her neighborhood. She understood what he was trying to say immediately. The instructions were clear to her, even if no one else could make sense of them. Her heart raced, knowing that this was a critical moment. She could see the deal in jeopardy if the CEO left without the clarity he needed. For a moment, the girl hesitated. She was just a child, and speaking up in front of such a powerful man felt intimidating. The room was silent except for the CEO's voice, sharp and demanding. He had already begun to give up, turning slightly, preparing to leave, convinced that the staff were incompetent. The maid tried to intervene, but her words fell flat against the CEO's impatience. He was on the verge of walking out, frustrated and angry, when the girl decided to act. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her hands moving confidently, signing the instructions exactly as he had intended. Her movements were fluid, precise, and carried the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The CEO stopped in his tracks, startled by the sudden clarity. He had not expected anyone, let alone a young girl, to understand him. The room seemed to hold its breath as he watched her. As she continued to sign, the CEO's expression shifted from frustration to surprise. He repeated one of the gestures, almost as if testing her understanding, and the girl responded perfectly. She clarified every point, every detail, making sure that there was no room for misunderstanding. The tension in the room began to ease, and the staff exchanged glances, astonished at the girl's skill. The maid looked on with a mixture of pride and relief, knowing that her daughter had stepped up when it mattered most. The CEO finally spoke, his voice quieter now, tinged with genuine curiosity. He asked a question, and the girl answered again through sign language, her confidence unwavering. For the first time, he paused and truly observed her, recognizing the intelligence and quick thinking that she displayed. This was not just a child mimicking signs. This was someone who understood the importance of the moment and acted decisively. The girl's intervention changed the entire atmosphere. What had begun as a tense and stressful encounter transformed into a moment of connection and understanding. The CEO, who had been ready to leave in frustration, now looked at the girl with a mixture of respect and admiration. He realized that he had misjudged the household staff, and that true ability could be found in the most unexpected places. By the time the interaction ended, the CEO was calm, his impatience replaced by a thoughtful curiosity. He had experienced something he had not anticipated, a reminder that power and wealth do not guarantee understanding or competence, and that brilliance often comes from places overlooked by the world. The girl returned to her mother, her hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline, but her eyes shone with pride. She had acted decisively, and in doing so had prevented a potentially disastrous misunderstanding. As the CEO left the estate, he carried with him a new awareness. He had witnessed the unexpected talent of a child who had acted with courage and intelligence. For the girl and her mother, it was a moment of quiet triumph, a validation of their abilities, and a reminder that even the smallest voices could make the largest impact. The estate returned to its usual rhythm, but the story of that evening lingered in the hearts of all who were present, a story of recognition, talent, and the surprising ways in which understanding can emerge. The morning after the billionaire CEO's visit began quietly in the grand estate. The maid was moving about with her usual efficiency, preparing breakfast and tidying up the rooms, while her daughter quietly set the table, careful not to make a sound. The previous day's events were still fresh in their minds. The girl couldn't stop thinking about the CEO's surprise, the way his sharp gaze had softened when he realized she understood him. It was a memory that made her feel proud, but also a little anxious. She knew how rare such moments were, and she wanted to be prepared if anything similar happened again. As the day progressed, the estate began to buzz with its usual rhythm. Deliveries arrived, gardeners tended to the flowers, and maintenance workers moved about, repairing small issues. Yet, for the girl, the world seemed different now. She felt a heightened awareness, noticing details she had once overlooked. Every gesture, every sound, every subtle sign in the movements of others caught her attention. It was as if she had stepped into a space where even the smallest action could carry significance. Later that day, a meeting was scheduled in the main hall of the estate. The CEO had sent a message requesting clarification on a few details regarding a shipment he had planned to inspect. The maid looked uneasy, knowing that none of the staff fully understood the technicalities involved. She glanced at her daughter, who had been quietly observing everything, and nodded. The girl understood without words. She had already begun thinking about how to communicate the necessary details effectively. When the CEO arrived again, he was in a hurry, his sharp eyes scanning the room for efficiency and accuracy. His impatience was palpable, a thin layer of tension in the air that made everyone move faster, speak quieter, and double-check their actions. The maid tried to explain the situation verbally, but it quickly became clear that her words were not enough. The CEO's gestures, precise and deliberate, required understanding that went beyond spoken language. The staff exchanged nervous glances, realizing that without someone capable of translating the gestures, the meeting might not go smoothly. The girl stepped forward, taking a deep breath. She remembered the way she had signed yesterday, the confidence she had felt when she realized she could bridge the gap between the CEO and the staff. She began signing again, this time with even more clarity, translating the CEO's gestures into precise, understandable instructions for the staff. Her hands moved gracefully, each sign deliberate, her eyes focused on both the CEO and the staff to ensure understanding. The CEO paused, watching her carefully. He repeated a gesture, testing her understanding, and the girl responded flawlessly. A sense of calm began to spread through the room. The staff relaxed, realizing that with her help, the meeting could proceed without confusion or frustration. The maid felt a wave of relief wash over her, grateful that her daughter had the skill and presence of mind to handle such a high-pressure situation. As the discussion continued, the girl's ability became more apparent. She anticipated questions, clarified points before misunderstandings could arise, and ensured that every detail was communicated accurately. The CEO, who had arrived with impatience and skepticism, began to show signs of respect. His sharp eyes softened, and his body language shifted from tense to attentive. He nodded occasionally, acknowledging the girl's skill and the accuracy of her translations. The girl noticed the subtle change in his demeanor and felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had not only helped the staff meet the CEO's expectations but had also earned a level of respect from a man who had previously seemed untouchable. It was a reminder that true understanding and skill could break barriers, even in the most intimidating situations. Throughout the meeting, she maintained her composure, never allowing nervousness to affect her performance. She moved with confidence, her hands translating complex gestures into clear instructions, her eyes meeting the CEO's to ensure he was satisfied. Every time a staff member looked unsure, she provided guidance through subtle signs, keeping the process smooth and efficient. By the end of the meeting, the CEO leaned back, a rare smile crossing his face. He spoke briefly, praising the accuracy and speed with which the instructions had been understood. Though he did not lavish compliments, the weight of his acknowledgement was clear. It was a recognition of talent, intelligence, and composure under pressure. After the CEO left, the atmosphere in the estate shifted from tense to celebratory. The maid hugged her daughter, pride and relief mixing in her eyes. The staff looked at the girl with newfound respect, realizing that her skills had not only solved a critical problem, but had also changed the way they saw her. She had become a bridge, connecting worlds that otherwise struggled to understand each other. The girl's mind continued to race with thoughts and possibilities. She realized that her knowledge of sign language was more than a skill. It was a tool that could open doors, solve problems, and even influence outcomes in ways she had never imagined. She felt a quiet determination to learn more, to refine her abilities, and to be ready for whatever challenges might come her way next. That evening, as she helped her mother prepare dinner, the girl reflected on the day's events. She understood that life often placed people in situations that tested their courage, knowledge, and quick thinking. What mattered most was how they responded. She had responded with confidence and clarity, and the results had exceeded even her own expectations. The sense of achievement was deeply satisfying, a reminder that her abilities were valuable and respected. The maid looked at her daughter, sensing the change in her demeanor. There was a maturity, a quiet confidence, and an understanding that came not from age but from experience. The daughter had demonstrated that intelligence and skill were not limited by circumstances or appearances. She had earned respect through action, proving that capability often lies hidden in unexpected places. The estate returned to its usual rhythm, but the impact of the day lingered. Everyone who had witnessed the interaction carried with them a sense of respect for the young girl's talent and presence of mind. It was a story that would be remembered in the household, a story of courage, skill, and the quiet power of understanding. In the days that followed, the girl continued to observe, learn, and grow. She helped the staff navigate small challenges, always using her skill to bridge communication gaps and ensure efficiency. Each success reinforced her confidence and sharpened her abilities. She knew that her understanding of sign language was more than just a tool. It was a way to connect, to influence, and to make a difference in moments that truly mattered. The CEO's brief visits continued over time, each encounter highlighting the girl's intelligence and composure. With every meeting, he came to appreciate not just her skill but her presence of mind, her ability to anticipate needs, and her courage to step forward when others hesitated. It was a reminder that talent could be found in the most unexpected places, and that true ability was often hidden behind quiet observation and careful attention to detail. Through these experiences, the maid's daughter grew not only in skill but in confidence and self-awareness. She understood that her actions had consequences, and that even small gestures could lead to significant impact. Her life at the estate was no longer just about observing and assisting. It was about leading quietly, making a difference in ways that others might not immediately recognize, but that carried profound importance. She had found her voice, not in words, but in actions, gestures, and the quiet power of understanding. The next morning, the estate woke up to the soft sounds of birds chirping and the sunlight filtering gently through the windows. The maid was already moving about, preparing breakfast and making sure the household was running smoothly. Her daughter, now more confident after her previous experiences, moved quietly around the kitchen, arranging the dishes and helping with small chores. The events of the last few days had changed something in her. She felt a quiet pride and a growing sense of purpose. She had realized that her knowledge of sign language was more than a personal skill. It was a bridge between people, a way to help others and make a difference. Word had spread quietly through the estate about the young girl's talent. Staff members who had once treated her as just a child now looked at her with respect and admiration. Even small tasks were approached differently. People listened to her suggestions, knowing that her observations were sharp and her understanding keen. The household had become more harmonious, and there was a sense of appreciation for her presence that had not been there before. Later that day, a problem arose that threatened to disrupt the smooth flow of work. A delivery of important documents had been scheduled for the CEO, and it was critical that everything was correct and complete. The maid tried to handle it, but the instructions were confusing, and the staff were unsure about certain details. The CEO was expected to arrive soon, and any mistake could have consequences. The atmosphere became tense as the staff worried about the possibility of errors. The girl, sensing the urgency, stepped forward. She had learned to read the CEO's gestures and expressions so well that she could anticipate his needs before he even spoke. She took charge, coordinating the staff and using her knowledge of sign language to clarify every instruction. Her hands moved smoothly, signing precise instructions to each member of the team. The staff followed her guidance, and the confusion slowly melted away. The documents were organized, checked, and ready well before the CEO arrived. When the CEO entered the estate, he immediately noticed the difference. The tension he had expected was gone. Everything was in order, and the staff seemed calm and efficient. He observed quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the room, and then he noticed the young girl standing confidently at the center, her hands moving fluidly as she directed the staff. He paused, realizing that she was the reason for the smooth operation. For a moment, he simply watched, silently acknowledging the skill and composure she displayed. As the meeting with the documents began, the CEO started signing out instructions, and the girl responded instantly, translating his gestures for the staff. Every detail was communicated accurately, and the process moved seamlessly. The CEO's usual impatience was replaced by a calm focus. He repeated gestures occasionally to test her understanding, and she responded without hesitation, ensuring that nothing was misunderstood. The staff began to rely on her guidance, trusting her ability to handle the situation. The girl's confidence grew with each passing moment. She realized that she was not just helping with a task. She was bridging two worlds, connecting the CEO's precise expectations with the staff's efforts. She could see the relief in the maid's eyes, the satisfaction of the staff, and the subtle signs of respect in the CEO's demeanor. It was a powerful feeling, knowing that her actions had such a meaningful impact. Throughout the day, more situations arose that required her skills. The CEO requested clarification on several small matters, each one critical in its own way. The girl responded with calm efficiency, ensuring that the staff understood every point. Her ability to anticipate needs, translate instructions, and maintain composure under pressure became the cornerstone of the estate's operations. The staff began to see her as a natural leader, someone whose quiet intelligence and skill could guide them through challenges. The CEO, observing her more closely, began to ask questions directly to her, seeking her input on minor decisions. He was impressed not only by her knowledge of sign language but by her quick thinking and understanding of the situations at hand. He began to see her as more than a child. She was a capable, intelligent individual whose contributions were invaluable. His respect for her grew, and he started to acknowledge her efforts with small nods and gestures of approval. The maid watched with pride as her daughter continued to excel. She remembered how she had once worried about her child's future, unsure if she would be recognized or valued. Now, she saw her daughter confidently handling complex situations, earning respect and recognition from a man who had once seemed untouchable. It was a moment of validation, a confirmation that her daughter's talents were not only real but impactful. By the end of the day, the CEO was visibly more relaxed. The documents had been handled flawlessly, and the staff had performed efficiently under the girl's guidance. He acknowledged her directly, offering a rare compliment and expressing his appreciation for her skills. The girl felt a sense of pride but remained humble, knowing that her efforts had been about helping others and ensuring that things ran smoothly. As the evening approached, the estate returned to its usual rhythm. The girl reflected on the day's events, thinking about how her knowledge and quick thinking had made a difference. She realized that her abilities were not just tools for communication. They were instruments of influence, understanding, and leadership. She had learned that true skill lay not only in knowing something but in using it effectively to help others. The staff, inspired by her example, began to approach their work with renewed focus and dedication. They recognized that even small contributions could have significant impact, especially when guided by intelligence, skill, and careful observation. The atmosphere in the estate was one of respect, collaboration, and quiet admiration for the girl who had become a central figure in its daily life. That night, as she prepared for bed, the girl thought about the future. She understood that her life had changed in subtle but meaningful ways. Her experiences had taught her confidence, responsibility, and the importance of using her skills wisely. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she had the ability to face them with intelligence, composure, and courage. The girl drifted off to sleep with a sense of purpose, ready to embrace whatever the next day might bring. She understood that her journey was just beginning, and that her actions had the power to influence not only her own life but the lives of those around her. The quiet moments of reflection filled her with determination and hope, reminding her that talent, courage, and understanding could shine even in the most unexpected places. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the estate, casting warm light across the polished floors. The household moved with a sense of routine, yet beneath the normalcy, a quiet excitement lingered. The events of the previous days had created a ripple that had not yet settled. The young girl, now more confident than ever, walked through the halls with an awareness of her own importance. Not in arrogance, but in understanding that her knowledge and skill had real value, that she could make a difference when it mattered most. That day, a new challenge arose. A series of urgent instructions arrived for the CEO, instructions that required immediate attention. The staff looked worried, glancing at one another with uncertainty. The instructions were complex and technical, and any mistake could have serious consequences. The girl observed quietly, her mind quickly analyzing the situation. She could see the tension building in the room, the anxious expressions of the staff, and she understood that they needed guidance. Once again, she stepped forward. Her hands moved fluidly, translating the CEO's signs into clear instructions for the staff. Every movement was precise, every gesture deliberate. The staff followed her guidance, their uncertainty fading as they realized that the situation was under control. The CEO, arriving shortly after, observed quietly, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. He watched the young girl with a sense of measured curiosity, noting the calm confidence in her movements and the clarity with which she communicated. The meeting began, and the CEO used his usual sharp gestures to communicate the instructions. The girl responded instantly, bridging the gap between his expectations and the staff's understanding. She anticipated questions, clarified ambiguities, and ensured that no detail was missed. The staff, who had once felt nervous and overwhelmed, now moved with confidence, guided by her clear directions. It was a seamless operation, a testament to her intelligence, composure, and skill. As the meeting progressed, the CEO's demeanor began to change. His usual impatience was replaced by attentiveness, his sharp expressions softening into quiet acknowledgement. He repeated gestures occasionally, testing her understanding, and she responded flawlessly. The atmosphere shifted from tension to smooth efficiency, and it became clear to everyone that the young girl was the key to this transformation. She had become the center of the operation, the bridge between instruction and execution. The maid watched with a mixture of pride and relief. She remembered the early days when she worried about her daughter's future, unsure if the world would recognize her abilities. Now, she saw her child confidently handling complex situations, earning respect from adults who had once seemed untouchable. It was a moment of quiet triumph, a confirmation that talent and courage often emerge in unexpected places. Throughout the day, the girl continued to manage the flow of information and tasks. She handled multiple challenges simultaneously, from clarifying technical details to coordinating staff movements. Her presence brought order to what could have been chaos. She understood the nuances of each situation, the unspoken concerns of the staff, and the precise expectations of the CEO. Her ability to navigate these layers of complexity demonstrated maturity far beyond her years. The CEO, observing her, began to engage directly with her more frequently. He asked her opinion on small adjustments, sought clarification on specific points, and relied on her guidance to ensure the tasks were executed perfectly. His respect for her grew, and he began to acknowledge her contributions with subtle gestures. A nod of approval, a satisfied glance, a brief smile. These small signs of recognition carried great weight, signaling a shift in his perception of the girl. By mid-afternoon, the urgent instructions had been executed flawlessly. The staff had performed efficiently under the girl's guidance, and the CEO was visibly impressed. He offered her a quiet compliment, noting her skill, composure, and ability to manage the situation. Though brief, his acknowledgement was significant. It was a recognition that went beyond words, an understanding of the value she brought to the operation. The girl felt a mixture of pride and humility. She understood that her actions had real impact, that her skill could influence outcomes and bring order to situations that might otherwise have been chaotic. She also recognized the responsibility that came with her abilities. Each decision, each gesture, each moment required careful thought and attention. She had learned that true skill was not just about knowing, but about applying knowledge effectively to help others. As the day continued, small moments highlighted her growing influence. Staff members sought her advice, asking for clarification on instructions or guidance on how to execute tasks. She responded patiently, using her skill to ensure that everyone was confident and capable. Her presence became a source of stability and reassurance, a reminder that even in complex situations, there was clarity and guidance available. The CEO, observing these interactions, began to see the larger picture. He realized that the young girl's influence extended beyond immediate tasks. Her ability to communicate effectively, to anticipate needs, and to maintain composure under pressure created an environment where efficiency and confidence thrived. He understood that her presence had a transformative effect on the household, changing the way people worked and interacted with one another. By evening, the urgent matters had been resolved, and the estate returned to its normal rhythm. The girl reflected on the day's events, thinking about how her actions had impacted everyone around her. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her skills had been used wisely and effectively. She also understood that her journey was ongoing, that each day presented new opportunities to learn, grow, and make a difference. The maid watched her daughter with pride, sensing the growth and maturity that had developed over the past days. The girl had demonstrated courage, intelligence, and the ability to lead quietly. She had earned respect not through words alone, but through action, skill, and composure. It was a lesson for everyone in the estate, that talent and brilliance could emerge from the most unexpected places. That night, as the girl prepared for bed, she thought about the path ahead. She understood that her abilities were valuable, not only for herself but for the people around her. She had learned that true influence came from understanding, action, and the willingness to step forward when it mattered most. Her experiences had shown her that even small gestures, when applied with skill and thoughtfulness, could have profound effects. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of determination and purpose. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she had the capability to face them. Her knowledge, confidence, and composure were tools she could rely on, and she was ready to continue using them to make a difference. The quiet moments of reflection filled her with hope, reminding her that talent, courage, and understanding could shine brightly, even in the most unexpected places. The next morning, the estate was alive with its usual activity. The maid moved gracefully through the rooms, preparing breakfast and ensuring the household ran smoothly. Her daughter, now more confident than ever, moved quietly alongside her, arranging dishes and attending to small chores with an air of calm determination. The events of the past days had left a deep impression on both of them. The young girl knew that her life had shifted in subtle but meaningful ways, that her skills and courage had earned respect and had made a real impact. That day, the billionaire CEO was scheduled to visit again. This time, the mood was different. There was no tension in the air, no sense of impending frustration. The staff were prepared, confident, and aware of the young girl's capabilities. They knew that with her guidance, the day would run smoothly. The girl herself felt a sense of quiet anticipation, ready to take on any challenge that might arise. When the CEO arrived, he walked through the estate with the same sharp presence he always carried. Yet, there was a subtle change in his demeanor. He observed the staff, noting their efficiency and calm, and his attention eventually settled on the young girl. She was standing confidently, her hands ready to bridge any communication gap, her eyes alert and focused. He paused, recognizing the skill and composure that she had displayed in the past days. It was a moment of acknowledgement, silent yet powerful. The meeting began with the CEO using his precise gestures to convey instructions. The girl responded immediately, translating his signs into clear, understandable communication for the staff. Her movements were fluid, her confidence unwavering, and her attention to detail impeccable. The staff followed her guidance, moving with efficiency and calm, reassured by her presence. The CEO watched closely, occasionally testing her understanding with subtle gestures, and each time she responded flawlessly. As the day progressed, challenges arose that required quick thinking and precise action. A delivery arrived with some missing documents, and a minor misunderstanding threatened to cause delays. The girl acted quickly, coordinating the staff, clarifying instructions, and ensuring that everything was handled without error. Her ability to anticipate problems and address them calmly prevented any disruption and impressed the CEO even further. Throughout the day, the CEO began to engage more directly with the girl. He asked her opinion on minor adjustments, sought her input on procedural details, and relied on her guidance to ensure that everything was executed flawlessly. His respect for her grew, and he began to acknowledge her contributions with subtle gestures. A nod of approval, a brief smile, a quiet word of recognition. These small acknowledgments carried immense significance, signaling a transformation in how he viewed her abilities and potential. The maid observed her daughter with a mixture of pride and awe. She remembered the early days when she had worried about her child's future, unsure if anyone would recognize or value her abilities. Now, she saw her daughter handling complex situations with calm intelligence, earning respect from one of the most powerful men she had ever encountered. It was a moment of validation, a confirmation that talent, courage, and determination could shine through any circumstance. As the afternoon approached, the girl faced yet another challenge. A set of critical documents required immediate review and precise handling, and the CEO had high expectations for accuracy. The girl organized the staff, ensured that each step was executed correctly, and translated all instructions with perfect clarity. Her actions prevented mistakes that could have caused serious problems. The CEO watched closely, visibly impressed by her composure and competence. By the end of the day, the CEO leaned back, a rare smile crossing his face. He addressed the girl directly, expressing his appreciation for her skill, intelligence, and ability to manage complex situations. He praised her composure under pressure and her ability to bridge the communication gap with the staff. Though his words were brief, their impact was significant. They were a recognition of talent, courage, and the quiet power of understanding. The girl felt a mixture of pride, humility, and satisfaction. She understood that her actions had real impact, that her skills could influence outcomes and bring clarity to situations that might otherwise have been confusing or stressful. She also recognized the responsibility that came with her abilities. Each decision, each gesture, each moment required thoughtfulness, focus, and care. She had learned that true skill was not just about knowing but about using knowledge effectively to help others. The staff, inspired by her example, approached their work with renewed confidence. They realized that even small actions could have meaningful impact when guided by intelligence, skill, and composure. The atmosphere in the estate was one of respect, collaboration, and quiet admiration for the girl who had become central to the household's daily functioning. That evening, the girl and her mother shared a quiet moment of reflection. They spoke of the events that had unfolded over the past days, of the challenges that had been met, and of the lessons learned. The maid expressed her pride, her gratitude, and her awe at her daughter's courage and intelligence. The girl listened quietly, understanding the significance of her actions and the recognition she had earned. As night fell over the estate, the girl prepared for bed, thinking about the journey she had experienced. She realized that her life had changed, that her abilities had opened doors, created opportunities, and earned respect. She understood that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she had the tools to face them. Her skill, confidence, and composure were instruments she could rely on, and she was ready to continue using them to make a difference. In the days that followed, the estate continued its rhythm, but the young girl's influence remained a central force. Her ability to communicate effectively, anticipate needs, and guide others had created an environment of efficiency, respect, and collaboration. The CEO, in his interactions with the household, continued to acknowledge her skill and intelligence, offering subtle recognition that reinforced her growing confidence and sense of purpose. The girl understood that her journey was ongoing, that each day presented new opportunities to learn, grow, and make a difference. She had discovered the power of quiet intelligence, the impact of thoughtful action, and the importance of courage in moments that mattered most. Her experiences had shown her that talent and brilliance could emerge from the most unexpected places, and that recognition often comes to those who act with skill, confidence, and humility. As she drifted off to sleep, the girl felt a sense of determination, purpose, and hope. She knew that her life had been changed in meaningful ways, and that her abilities would continue to shape her experiences and influence those around her. She had learned the value of skill, courage, and understanding, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in her capacity to make a difference in the world.